Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Project MIS. My name is Sumit Kumar Ambastha, and in today's video we are going to talk about definition of ready. By the name it suggests definition of ready. It means we are going to talk about something which is give us some idea about are we in a good position to start a specific set of work or not. In order to discuss that, we will be talking about characteristics of definition of ready, importance of it, and the component of definition of ready, which will be constituting definition of ready when we are defining it, and one example from the software development industry. So before we begin discussing about each of these points, I would request you all to go through my Facebook page. The link is given in the description of the video. Please check the page, and if you like the page content, please like the page and share among your friends. That will be a great help for me. And if you have any expectation whether I should be uploading a specific video, or you need any details from me on any of the topic in Agile, Scrum, Business Analyst, you can put that as a comment, and I will be following your comment and doing the needful on that. So now I believe we are good. We are in a good position to start discussing about definition of ready. So let's begin. So what is definition of ready? Before we understand about the slide point, let's take one very practical example. Like, if I stay in Chennai, and for example, if I have to travel to a place called Wayanad, for example, from Chennai to Wayanad, tomorrow morning I have to start. So what all preparation I have to do? I have to make sure that my car is serviced properly, it is ready, diesel is there, like, air pressure is checked, and then the toll tag, that is also recharged. So practically I want to make sure that all the preparations are done, so when I start my journey tomorrow I can drive smooth, and I don't have to stop in between to make some arrangement, whether it is diesel or air pressure, or toll tag is not recharged or something. So practically what I am doing, I am making sure that all the preparations are done so my travel is smooth tomorrow. That is what. So what all point I am making sure, like fuel, air pressure, toll tag, these are the points which are my definition of ready. So this is my checklist which I am making sure that these all are met, so my travel will be smooth. On the same line, we have the same checklist in software development industry also, or any other industry as well, where we are using agile. So that is what give us give us the comfort, which says that if I start my work now, because we have all the informations ready, all the preparations are done, so we will be riding smooth, so we'll be developing the software smoothly. So what is definition of ready? The definition of ready is a set of criteria that ensure that a user story or task is well defined, has all necessary information. So mostly this is always about story and task. There are other factors as well which we will be also discussing about, but because story or task is a primary source of information from any of the developer, so we have to make sure that story is properly defined and it has all the required content, so it gives a good amount of information for developers. The information what is available in story and task, it should be good enough for developer to understand, so that they can do the estimation of the story. So if I don't have all the information for the story, then I may not be able to tell you that how much time I need to complete the story. But if I have all the informations available, then it will be very easy for me to estimate, okay, I will take 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever it is. Then it helps streamline the workflow in agile development by ensuring that work items are properly prepared before they are taken up for the development work. Correct? So it is we are just making sure, we have spent good amount of time before we start the work. It's just not that we decided, we got some story written, and without even refining the story, discussing the detail about the story, we are diving into the development. That is not the case here. So it is giving us that comfort that we have done the preparation before we start the work. It reduces interruptions and misunderstanding during the development process. How, when we are refining the story, when we are following the checklist for definition of ready, which we have to make sure that which meets all the points of definition of ready. So because we are having the discussion among a group, when I say among a group, means a group which is comprising of product owner, scrum master, and the scrum team, development team. So everyone is discussing together. Any questions they have, they can ask, and all the possible details are given in the story. So if all the informations are available, all the informations are clear, whether it is about understanding the story and the outcome, or if there is any dependency, or is there any integration with another team or another API, whatever information is required, all the informations are discussed. Have put those information in the story. If any UI is there, UI UX mockup is there, then that is also attached in the story. So technically whatever is needed, everything is attached. So this removes, any confusion or any interruptions which developer will be seeing after they start the work. And if these informations are not clarified, and developers start the work, then in that time, they will be struggling with the clarifications what they are looking for, and it will be delaying the work. So it reduces interruptions and also misunderstanding during the development process. So that is a brief about what is definition of ready. Now let's move to the next topic: characteristics of definition of ready. So what all can be the characteristics for definition of ready? So the first one, let's understand. This is very very self-explanatory, and we have discussed in previous slide also. So it is very much related to that. So the first characteristic which we will see is clear and well defined. So what should be clear and well defined? So if we're talking about user story and task, it should be very very clear and well defined. All the necessary information, whether it is requirement or a specification about the development or acceptance criteria, or any details what product owner can think of, should be shared with developer, should be part of this user story or task. So if this information is clear, meets the requirement, then definitely that will be helping developers for smoother delivery. The second characteristics for definition of ready is on the dependencies and prerequisites. So there are situations where, you have dependency on some other team, and when we are working specifically in the corporate environment, definitely there will be dependencies, prerequisites. If you are starting the development, then you have to request access for different environment, database, and for every sort of part of application, whether it is permission roles, for everything you are relying on some other team. So dependencies will be there. So for any storage development, if any dependencies are there, so that might not come from the product owner, because that might come on the technical aspect of the story. But when the grooming is happening, in that particular time, dependencies and prerequisites should be understood among the developers, and should be figured out, and should be mentioned in the story. So when the people who the story is assigned to, and they are working on the story, they are clear about the dependencies and prerequisites, so they know what needs to be done. So if that is clear before the development starts, it's very easy to start the work and complete the work. Then estimable. So any story what we are talking about, we should be able to estimate it, and the estimation can only be done when the all the informations are clear in the story. So estimable is very important aspect. And this is if you have a story which goes for a longer duration, and it is also crossing the time duration for the sprint, then we have to break down into smaller pieces, and based on the available information you should be able to estimate it, whether the story can be done in 2 days, 3 days, few hours, 5 days, but lesser number of days than the sprint cycle. So estimable is one of the definition characteristics of definition of ready. Now acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is what is again a criteria which makes sure that how all the expectation from the product owner is met for when the development is done, and based on that DoD is checked, and a done is decided whether the story can be considered as a done or not. So overall what we are talking about a very well drafted user story or task which conveys all the necessary information for the development to the developers, so they are clear about each and everything. So in other words, what I can say, you must be knowing about invest, right? When we are writing user story, we follow that invest word, where I stands for independent, N stands for negotiable, and so on, valuable, estimate, small, and testable. I have written these 6 words in the bottom: independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. So whatever are the characteristics for a user story, same has to be followed here. If that is being followed, then our definition of ready is done. So independent is what? Independent means the story should be independent. There should not be any dependency among the story. So that independent should be there. Negotiable. There should be uh, some scope left out, where there is a chance of discussion based on the optimum output. If developers are discussing about the story, and while discussing they figure out some better way of doing the things, so that scope should be there, which can be discussed with the product owner and can be amended in the story, because there is better way of doing the things is available. So that negotiable, so that flexibility should be there a bit. Then valuable, whatever story we are talking about should add some value or should add increment when the done is completed. Estimable, if we have the information available, then we should be able to estimate the story, and if we see that the size of the story is going beyond the cycle of sprint, then we have to break down the story into smaller pieces, and we should be able to estimate it. Small means it has to be lesser than the size of the sprint, and if it goes bigger, then again the resizing has to be done and should cut down to the smaller story. Testable, so if there is a story, then we should be having very clear idea that how the story will be tested, so that developers are working towards that. If the story is there, then how you are going to test that the story is completed. So the story should be written in a way that it should be testable. So if these criteria are met, then automatically all the characteristics of definition of ready will be met. One important thing, when definition of ready is followed or is being executed, so that you guys have to understand it is the time of backlog refinement. So backlog is created by product owner, Now, during the before we start the sprint planning, we have to groom the stories, and we do backlog defining, backlog grooming. During that discussion, product owner, scrum master, and the development team, they sit together and discuss about the story. That time they have to make sure all definition of ready components are met, and story is independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable, so that we are good to start the work once the sprint starts. So at the time of backlog grouping, this definition of ready is executed and is very helpful. Okay. Now let's move to our next topic. Importance of definition of ready. It is very important by the points we have discussed so far. Definitely, it makes some sense. So definition of ready, it plays a very crucial role in agile software development by ensuring that work items are properly prepared before they are taken up by the development team. So preparation is needed, and we have done the preparation. So that is the importance of it. If the preparation is done, then definitely we will be able to reap the benefit out of it. So what are the benefits you are going to reap? When definition of ready is there and it is properly followed, improved efficiency and flow. Very self-explanatory. When the developers are having all the necessary information, which they need for the development, whether it is requirement or dependencies or any of the prerequisites. If everything is available at the same time before they start the work, then it's very easy for them to correlate and work on the details when they actually start the work. So definitely that will improve the efficiency and the flow of the development. Enhanced collaboration and communication. So when the grooming happens, the entire team is together discussing about all the stories. There can be different dependencies, there can be different prerequisites, there can be access requirement, there can be two or three developers involved, but everyone will be aware, equally aware about all the work, and where, if more than one or two members are needed, and if they can add value while discussing also. So enhanced collaboration and communication, that is the second importance of definition of ready. Now let's come to the third one, accurate estimation. Estimation is very important because that is the one of the very important aspect for agile. If estimation is not done, then we will not be able to plan the release. We will not be able to plan the sprint. So how accurate estimation can be done? If we have all the necessary information available, and developers know that what level of effort, is needed for the development. So if they have that clarity available, then they will be able to tell exactly that how much time they need to complete the job, and that is how it will help to accurately do the estimations. Then quality assurance, we are talking about a detailed user story, very clear user story, so it conveys the expectation very clearly. We are talking about acceptance criteria, which defines that how we will be deciding that the story is completed and story can be considered as a done. So if all these criteria are being followed properly, then definitely we are going to avoid missing on the quality. Because if everything is set, whether it's a specification, it is a requirement, it is dependencies, it is prerequisites, everything is clear. Team knows what needs to be done. Team knows how much time they need to deliver the task. So all the points we are covering, so definitely it improves on the quality, and it assures the whole agile team that quality will be assured if definition of ready is followed. One important thing here in the importance section I will mention, that how you will mark in the Jira that this story has met definition of ready. So you get the story from product owner, And when you get the story from the product owner, the workflow status of the story will be to do. And when you actually start the work, you move the story from to do to in progress status. But I have seen in corporates, even if you are using a private Jira project also, like on your personal basis, then you can create a new workflow between to do status and in progress status, and you can name that workflow as a ready. So when the story is in to do status and you are picking those story while discussing during backlog grooming, and when all the points what you want to make sure that which meets for definition of ready, if all those points are met during the discussion, then you can change the workflow status from to do to ready. So when you see the ready workflow status, it clarifies that these stories are meeting the definition of ready criteria. So it is all set to start for the development. So those can be on the top list of your backlog, and from there those items can be picked up during your sprint planning meeting. So that's about importance of definition of ready. Now let's talk about components of definition of ready. So components means, as we have discussed earlier, definition of ready is a criteria which we are making sure before the development start for the user story or task. So what all parameter or components we are going to check under definition of ready? So starts with user story clarity. So user story should be very clear. So clarity of user story is one of the component. Acceptance criteria, you have to make sure that acceptance criteria is there in the story and it is very well defined. So that is the second component. Dependencies, if you foresee any dependencies are there among team member, among different teams, among different vendors, whatever it is, that dependencies should be highlighted and should be mentioned in the story. Mockups, mockup, so if you are working on the screen related stuff where some screen component we are talking about, if the UI UX mockup is available, that mockup should be attached in the user story, so that will help developer to actually compare their output with the mockup, so that will give the closest output to the product owner. And demo expectation, that also should be very explicitly specified in definition of ready. So when the development is done and we reach to the stage of review where the product review is going, a sprint review is going on, and we are giving the demo to the customer, in that particular situation, how the demo will be done, what is the expectation from product owner, what is the expectation from client, that should be very clearly very well defined in the story section in under definition of ready. So it will be very easy for developers to match the expectation. So when they are performing the testing, that time they can virtually do that demo and make sure that the expectations are met. So if these components are specified in definition of ready and are met, then definitely this is going to help team to improve on the quality and efficiency. So that's about components of definition of ready. Let's move to our next topic. Let's talk about example of definition of ready. So before we go further to discuss on the example, so this is one of the example I have used here for software development project. But as we know, that agile is not only limited to the software development. It can be used in manufacturing, marketing, sales, or any different so many different industries. Wherever you are using, as per the industry requirement, industry expectation, and the trend, that definition of ready will be differing. But for software development, what can be the ideal definition of ready? That example it is here. So if you are from the same industry, you can definitely refer it for your practical use. So how definition of ready is set and implemented. So before we discuss on these criteria one by one, let's understand. So this is the list, and how, at which stage this will be executed. So you have a story which is given by product owner, and when story grooming is happening, refinement is happening, product owner, scrum master and the development team, they are sitting together talking about the story, making sure information is available, clearly available, and it is easily understood by developers so that they are good to start the work. So at that particular stage, you have to execute this list of criterias and make sure that the story or the requirement meets all these points. So if this all points are done and met, then that story can be marked as ready, and which gives that comfort to developer that it has all the necessary information to start the work. So let's understand what is example. Clear user story description. So the user story is clearly and concisely described. We have discussed quite a few times now, discussing definition of ready. So it should have all the title, brief description, and the details needed for user story to describe what is expected in that. The acceptance criteria. It should have a very well defined acceptance criteria which defines, like, the condition that must be met for the story to be considered complete. So when I say the story is complete, so how will I say the story is complete? So I have to check all the parameters given in acceptance criteria, that is it meeting the expectation. If it meets all the acceptance criteria condition, then definitely that can be considered as a complete story. But if it is not, then in that particular instance, then again developer need to do some rework on that. Business value. The user story has a defined business value or benefit that justifies its inclusion in the sprint. So this is very generic point. If a story is written, and definitely there will be some purpose of the story. So we just have to make sure that the story is there. It should have some value, and it should contribute towards meeting the objective of the sprint goal. Then dependencies identified. If you have any external dependencies, any prerequisites, that should be part of your definition of ready. And the team should be aware about all the potential blockers which can come on your way. So if those things are clear, can be figured out while having the grooming session, then that should be captured and should be helpful for the developer when they start the work. Estimation and size. The user story has been estimated in a story point or other relevant unit. So what can be other relevant unit? Whatever it is, whether it is story point or other relevant units, means like instead of writing the story point, few teams are directly writing the number of hours or the number of days, whatever it is. In that format, we should be able to do the estimation. And team should have the shared understanding of the level of effort required to complete the story. So team should have the shared understanding, means altogether the entire team should be agreeing on one timeline which is needed to complete the story. So that's why it is shared understanding. So if there is some emergency happens, if person A is not there, then person B should pick and should complete in the same amount of time. And then design and mockup. If applicable, design mockups, wireframes or UI UX specifications are available and attached to the story. So if UI UX is available, definitely that should be attached. Otherwise, it will not serve the purpose. If we just create the mockup, UI, UX, and discuss about the screen design and not share with the developer, then definitely there is no value out of it. So it is equally important while planning that once this is agreed, then that UI or UX screen should also be attached to the user story so that developer can get a fair idea that what they are supposed to develop. The design is consistent with the organization's design guideline. So this is the criteria if you are working in the organization where there is some standard protocol to be followed, or a standard design template is there which needs to be followed for all the different applications. So you have to make sure that the mockup what you are following, the design what you are following is in alignment with the organization's guideline. So those things can be checked at the time of grooming, because designing is very important part. If we miss the design, if we go for wrong design which is not in alignment with the organization, then after you complete the outcome, or you go for review and you get the feedback, and then you are supposed to do the rework. And if you are supposed to do the rework, then again there is a lot of work will be there, and some misses will be there to meet the sprint goal. So this is the example of definition of ready. So by this we are completing the discussion on definition of ready. I hope this video will be helpful to understand more about it and get some clarity about definition of ready and when we can use it and how we can practically implement in our day-to-day environment. So thank you so much for watching this video, and please put your comments for with your feedback, and I will be definitely following on that comment. Hope to see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much.